Welcome to our channel. Every Friday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Greenwich Mediterranean Time, we post a new video of a real-life drama told in story format. If you enjoy such content, be sure to tickle the like button and hit subscribe and the bell notification so you never miss out on new stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The dense jungles of Vietnam in the late 1960s were a place of both profound beauty and unspeakable terror. For the Marines patrolling these verdant labyrinths, every shadow held a threat, and every rustle could signal an impending attack. However, few people know about the spine-chilling supernatural torment many soldiers had to survive in these terrifying jungles. This is the story of one such patrol, a platoon led by Sergeant Jack Harris, whose encounter with the supernatural left an indelible mark on all who survived. The helicopter blades chopped through the thick, humid air, creating a deafening roar that drowned out the sounds of the jungle. As the chopper descended, the lush canopy parted to reveal a small clearing, the designated landing zone. Sergeant Jack Harris peered out, his sharp eyes scanning the area for any signs of enemy activity. Sergeant Harris was a man hardened by the relentless grind of war. Standing at 6 feet tall, he had a solid, muscular build that spoke of years of rigorous training and physical endurance. His once vibrant blue eyes had dulled to a steely gray, reflecting the countless horrors he had witnessed. Deep lines etched his face, prematurely aging him beyond his 35 years. His skin, tanned and weathered by the harsh sun and jungle elements, bore scars that told tales of near misses and fierce battles. The war had carved away the softer parts of Jack's personality, leaving behind a stoic and determined leader. The cheerful, easygoing man who had enlisted with dreams of heroism was replaced by someone who rarely smiled and always seemed to be on edge. His voice, once filled with warmth, had taken on a harsh, clipped tone, as if each word were carefully measured to conserve emotional energy. The camaraderie he once shared freely with his men had turned into a distant professional respect, a necessary barrier to cope with the loss and pain that came with each new mission. Yet beneath the tough exterior, there remained a flicker of the man he used to be, someone who cared deeply for his platoon and carried the heavy burden of their safety on his broad shoulders. This duality made Jack a formidable leader, unyielding in the face of danger, yet fiercely protective of his men, driving him to push through the fear and uncertainty that the war constantly threw at them. The smell of rotor wash mingled with the earthy scent of the jungle, a combination of moist soil, decaying vegetation, and the sweet aroma of wildflowers. As the helicopter touched down, Jack signaled to his men to disembark. "All right, Marines, let's move out," he shouted over the noise. The platoon, consisting of 20 hardened soldiers, quickly formed a perimeter around the clearing. Their senses were on high alert, every sound and movement scrutinized. Jack's second-in-command, Corporal Danny Moore, approached him. "Sir, the locals said this area is haunted by the Ma," Danny said, his voice tinged with unease. Jack frowned. The Ma, or ghost in Vietnamese folklore, was a topic that had come up several times during their briefings with the local villagers. Supposedly these spirits haunted the jungles, preying on the living. Jack dismissed it as superstition, but the nervous looks on his men's faces told him they took it more seriously. "We'll be fine, Danny. Just stick to the plan and keep your eyes open," Jack replied, his tone firm. Their first objective was to reach a small village nestled deeper within the jungle. The trek was arduous, the heat oppressive, the thick foliage slapped against their faces, and the air was thick with humidity, making every breath feel like a struggle. Birds and insects created a cacophony of sounds, and the occasional monkey screeched from the treetops. As they approached the village, the smells of cooking fires and animal dung mixed with the familiar scent of the jungle. The villagers greeted them with wary eyes, children hiding behind their mothers' skirts. An elder, a wiry man with weathered skin, approached Jack. "Ma," the elder said, pointing to the jungle with a look of fear. "Stay away." Jack nodded, not wanting to disrespect their beliefs, but he had a mission to complete. The villagers provided them with supplies and warned them once more before they departed. "Do you believe in that ghost story?" Private Mike Reynolds asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but I know these people believe in it," Jack replied, his eyes scanning the tree line. "And that means we should take it seriously." As dusk approached, the platoon set up camp. The sun dipped below the horizon, and darkness enveloped the jungle. The night sounds were different, more menacing. The chirping of insects was louder, the calls of nocturnal animals more frequent. A sense of unease, which they had all come to be uncomfortably familiar with, settled over the men. Jack sat by the fire, the flames casting flickering shadows on his face. The scent of burning wood mingled with the stale odor of sweat and damp gear. The men ate their rations in silence, the usual banter absent. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. The men jumped to their feet, weapons at the ready.
Private Reynolds is gone,
someone shouted. Jack grabbed his rifle and flashlight, leading the search party into the dense undergrowth. The beams of their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing only twisted vines and gnarled roots. The smell of fear was palpable, a cold sweat breaking out on Jack's forehead.
Mike, where are you?
A rustling sound came from ahead, and the men frantically pointed their weapons in that direction. Jack advanced cautiously, the beam of his flashlight illuminating the terrified face of Private Reynolds. He was on the ground, clutching his leg, eyes wide with fear.
Something grabbed me. It was cold and strong.
Jack examined his leg and found deep, jagged scratches. They looked too irregular to be made by any animal. A chill ran down his spine as he helped Reynolds to his feet.
Let's get back to camp.
The next morning, the men awoke to find strange markings around their camp. Symbols carved into the trees, crude and ominous. The villagers' warnings echoed in Jack's mind as he examined the carvings. They were unlike anything he had seen before.
Sergeant, what do you think these mean?
I'm not sure, but they weren't here yesterday. Stay sharp. We need to keep moving.
As they trekked deeper, they stumbled upon an abandoned temple, overgrown and crumbling. Vines snaked up the stone walls, and moss covered every surface. The air was cooler here, and the scent of ancient stone and dampness filled their nostrils.
Looks like no one's been here for centuries.
Private Thompson muttered.
Let's take a look inside,
Jack said, motioning for his men to follow. Inside the temple, the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. The walls were adorned with faded murals depicting scenes of ritualistic ceremonies and ghostly figures. The floor was littered with debris, and the silence was deafening.
Keep your eyes open. We don't know what we're dealing with.
As they explored the temple, a sense of extreme unease settled over the men. The shadows seemed to move on their own, and their whispers to one another eerily echoed through the halls. The smell of damp stone was overpowering, mingling with the coppery scent of old blood.
Sergeant, I don't like this place.
Stay close and stay focused.
Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through the temple, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic set in as the men fumbled in the darkness, the oppressive silence broken only by their frantic breathing.
Stay calm. Light your lanterns.
As the lanterns flickered to life, they revealed a figure standing in the doorway. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, eyes hollow and lifeless. She wore a tattered dress, and her hair hung in tangled strands.
Well,
The men froze, their eyes wide with terror. Jack felt a chill run down his spine as he took a step forward.
Who are you?
The woman did not respond. Instead, she turned and vanished into the shadows. The men stood in stunned silence, the only sound their ragged breathing.
We need to get out of here.
Agreed. Let's move.
As they exited the temple, the jungle seemed darker, more menacing. The sounds of the night were louder, the air thicker. The smell of fear was palpable, mingling with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation.
Stay close and stay alert.
The men moved in a tight formation, their every sense on high alert. Every rustle, every sound sent shivers down their spines. The oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them, the smell of fear growing stronger. Suddenly, they heard a scream. It was Private Davis, his eyes wide with terror as he pointed to the trees. There, in the shadows, they saw the woman again. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light, and her mouth twisted into a sinister smile.
Run!
None of the men had a moment's hesitation. They all bolted. They ran through the jungle, branches whipping at their faces, the sound of their pounding hearts drowning out all other noise. The smell of sweat and fear filled the air, and the taste of bile rose in their throats. As they reached a clearing, they stopped to catch their breath. The woman was nowhere to be seen, but the sense of unease lingered. As dawn approached, the men were exhausted, their nerves frayed. The jungle seemed to taunt them, the shadows playing tricks on their minds. The smell of fear was overwhelming, the taste of bile ever present. They stumbled upon another clearing, this one more open. The smell of fresh water filled the air, and the sound of a nearby stream was a welcome relief. In the clearing, the men set up a defensive perimeter, trying to find some semblance of security. The jungle was alive with the sounds of the night, but now those sounds seemed to carry a mocking tone, as if the jungle itself was aware of their fear. Jack stayed awake, his eyes scanning the darkness, every sense heightened. As the first light of dawn broke through the canopy, Jack gathered his men. "We need to get out of this jungle and back to base," he said. "Stay sharp and stay close." The trek back was grueling. The jungle seemed to resist their every step. The undergrowth thicker, the path less clear. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and sweat, and every sound seemed amplified. When they finally emerged from the jungle and reached the safety of their base, the men were shadows of their former selves. The encounter with the Ma had left deep psychological scars. They spoke little of what had happened, but the fear was evident in their eyes. The story of Jack's platoon was not unique. Throughout the war, there were numerous reports from soldiers about encounters with the Ma, which translates to mother in English. These stories were often whispered in the dead of night, around campfires, or in the safety of barracks. The locals' belief in these spirits only added to the soldiers' fear. For many soldiers, the war in Vietnam was a battle on two fronts. The physical enemy, the VC, was a constant threat. But the psychological battle against the unknown, against the whispers of the Ma, left an indelible mark. Sergeant Jack Harris returned home a changed man. The war had carved deep lines into his face, and the horrors he had witnessed haunted his dreams. The jungles of Vietnam, with their hidden dangers and whispered legends, had left an imprint on his soul. He often wondered what had done more damage to his psyche: the relentless, visible enemy, or the unseen terror that lurked in the shadows. To this day, the jungles of Vietnam hold many secrets, and for those who survived the war, the whispers of the Ma would forever be a reminder of the unseen horrors of